I'm going to ask you in a very bold way,
Mhm.
what gave you the audacity to believe that you can be more than Asperger's would allow you to be if you stayed within that box? What made you think you could do that?
It was actually something my mom said that I took to heart. Uh, if you know how to read, you can do anything.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Sharika. My name is Sharika Swaby. I am also known as the Mind Reset Strategist. I am a certified life coach, mentor, author, speaker, and of course, the host of this show. Now, my guest today is a perfume and wine enthusiast and entrepreneur. He's a motivational speaker. He's a 5 times published author, a consultant for aspiring authors, and a philanthropist. That is a long list of things. He also has a love for art, culture, and invigorating experiences. When he isn't focused on his business endeavors, you will find him studying personal development and ways of making himself better. David Williams, welcome to Conversations with Shariko.
Yes, I am so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what do you classify as invigorating experiences?
Um, Actually, I'm glad that that's the first question because what comes to mind is art. Actually, I've actually been exploring um, art shows currently, and I'm calling in from New York. Um, and New York has a bunch of art shows that I did not know about until this year. This year is really when I really started to explore art, and just seeing how there's so many different ways to express yourself, whether that's through art, through books, through perfume, through wine, through fashion, anything that you can find to express yourself. Um, it's part of that invigorating experience. So I'm obsessed with art and I'm a lover of art. So that's where my love for invigorating experiences comes from. Just exploring art and the different forms of it.
Okay, so for someone who's not a lover of art or the finer pieces of life, because art is kind of considered a finer, parts of life. For someone who is not as into it as you are, how would you describe the feeling that gives you being in those spaces?
I'd say it's freeing. Um,
Freeing.
yeah, like I don't approach it from the standpoint of looking at it as like as one of the finer things in life. I approach it from a place of, um, again, expression, right? Because I feel like there's multiple ways to do that. It doesn't always have to be in the luxury sense. It could be through your sneakers. Maybe you have a certain style of sneaker that you might like, or maybe you have a certain color shirt that you are drawn to. Um, so I feel like to me that's ultimately what art is about. It's more about the expression, not so much about the luxury aspect of it, but more so about like expression and just using it as a way to express yourself.
Okay, perfectly said. Okay, now
Hmm.
each of us come from somewhere, born into a different kind of situation. I want to hear about the making of David Williams. Um,
Hmm.
where did you grow up? What was growing up like? Were your parents around? Were they not around? Tell me about that experience to the point where you're at now.
Um, yeah, so now, as you've said, I've written a few books. I've done perfume. I've done a bunch of things. But I did not start off like that. In fact, in school, I was very much to myself. I was very quiet, which when I explain that to classmates and things like that, they almost are in kind of disbelief. And that's where this saying that I've come up with is become someone or something that nobody thought you could be. And for me, that was nobody fathomed that I would write books and do podcasting and all these crazy things that I'm doing, because I came to a point where I got tired. I got tired of feeling as though I was looking for, again, somebody to save me. I got tired, you know, and the people that I was looking to for saving never came. So I eventually was like, well, I can stay here, or I can figure something out. I don't know where this is going, but I got to do something. And that's when I started to, since we're talking about being your own hero, that's when I guess you could say I took the bull by the horns, if you will, and just didn't let go since. But I was quiet as a kid. And so even my mom, she was also in the workforce. My dad was also in the workforce. Unfortunately, he was such a workaholic that he was not around, unfortunately, as much as he wanted to be. And I held some resentment for that because I was young. I was 5, 6, and 7. I did not know that adults had to work. So I took it to heart when my graduations would come and it wouldn't be there, or like birthday parties, or like special holidays even, right? So it took a long time for me to let go of the resentment and understand that he had to work. There were bills. So I met a Reiki master that helped me to let go of that, to let go of the resentment aspect of it. And it's really calmed my heart a lot. I don't have any resentment. I'm not really confrontational as I once was. A bit stubborn still, but but as far as being like resentment and holding on to like negative emotions, I don't hold on to any negative emotions at this point. So I could go on, but I don't want to be too long-winded. But that's how I ended up becoming, I guess, an author, podcaster, and some of the things that I have like going on now, and becoming somebody that nobody thought I could be.
So when you got to that point, that decision to do something different, to make a change, to be your own superhero,
Mm-hmm.
when you got to that point, what was one of the first thing that you did?
The first thing that I did before I wrote books, I actually blogged because I wanted to be comfortable with the idea of writing a book. And I had a friend who that I had known for a long time, about 10 years, that caught a glimpse of one of my blogs, and it was a Zodiac blog, because I used to love the Zodiac, and just finding out as much about yourself as you could find out, so that way you're not defined by what other people say. And so I really went on this journey of just like self-mastery and self-discovery. And my friend caught a glimpse of the blog and said, "Hey, I think you should write a book." Now, at first I was like, I don't know if I should. Who's gonna write? Who's gonna buy my stuff? Who's gonna listen? But the more that I sat with it, and the more that I thought about it, it was like that annoying poke that you can't get rid of. You try to, but it just won't go anywhere. And so I was like, okay, fine. I know the universe is trying to tell me something with this, and it won't leave me. So I'm gonna follow the breadcrumbs. That's what I call it. I call it following the breadcrumbs. And so the first thing I did once I got um, a feeling of it or notion to do it was I woke up at 2 in the morning when I wasn't working on every Saturday, and I just wrote. I didn't care if it made sense. I didn't care if it sounded like jargon to somebody else that might be reading it. I just had a lot to say, and I realized that I had a lot that I wanted to say, a lot that I had observed, a lot that it had to come out. And so um, I took that I guess that nudge and that feeling, and I just followed the feeling. I just followed the nudge, and it took a year, but then that's when I was able to come up with my first book. On June 15th at midnight is when I finished. And it's called An Eagle Eye with a Lion's Heart, How Introverts Can Break Through Barriers. And it was symbolic of me breaking free, of just doing as I was told all the time. And I felt like I wanted to see where my heart would take me. Not so much other people, because other people will lead you off the cliff if you let them. So I wanted to see where my heart would take me. And that's pretty much how it's gotten me here now to book number 6 on my birthday, which will be out like next year. But just seeing where my heart would take me, it's been beautiful. I've met some great people because of it.
Okay. Sounds like it's been a fun trip for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've felt coming out of that space of feeling stuck and feeling like you're drowning. I'm assuming this. Yeah. So coming out of that space, you've written, you've gotten some Reiki healing. What else have you done to get you into the frame of mind that you needed to be in order to start um, taking the steps and becoming the person that you want to be, defining yourself, all of that? What else did you do?
Meditation has played a big part. It's a meditation. And then also disconnecting from social media. That has also allowed me to just be with my thoughts and not feel like I'm missing something if I stay off of social media for 1 hour. And recognizing also within staying off of social media that the right people will notice when you're missing. The right people will notice when you're missing. And that I use that usually to see who actually cares. Because I feel like it's one thing to say that you care, but sometimes you do have to disconnect to see who actually does follow through with the amount of care that they have for you. And so I'd say disconnecting from social media, I'd say meditation, I'd say also being around the right people that can fan your dreams or your
Flames.
that you're trying to say, and can kind of, even when you're struggling to say it, they know what you're talking about because they get it. Like they just kind of something that you don't have to say, they just get it. So those would be my top 3. Could go on, but those would be like my 3 things that have helped.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for joining us. David and we're talking about being a superhero and how he had to be his own superhero in order to get himself out of the place of some kind of being a victim. Because if we're sitting down and waiting for someone to come and rescue us, we really are being victims, right? And we don't know it, and nobody tells us that's what it is. But you will remain in that space for your entire life if you don't get up and stand up and take charge. And it's gonna sound like I'm gonna sound like a scratch record, but I understand exactly exactly where you were, and I also understand the journey of coming from that place because I've been there. I have cut out social media and TV for like 2 years. I watched no TV at all because I needed to be able to just come up with a thought that's mine. right? And then there's so much negativity on TV, negativity on the news, and they bombard you with their own, because television is really a thing that taps into your subconscious, and people don't know that. So you consume the same kinds of things over and over again, and before you know it, you're being conditioned to think a certain way, and so you're incapable of an independent thought.
Right.
So cutting out social media and cutting out television, I did that for approximately 2 years. And I was so out of social media that when I decided that I wanted to go down this path, I had no clue that there were people out there doing it already. So when I finally went on Facebook and started meeting people, getting around, I realized that there is a big market out there, and there are people doing this. Because usually, if I needed to to listen to something or hear something, I'd go to YouTube, right? So I knew that YouTube was there, but I didn't know that on these social media platforms, even Instagram. I thought everybody on Instagram was just taking selfies and posting and stuff like that. So I had no clue because I was out of social media altogether. But that time away, though, allows you to, as I said, be able to cultivate an independent thought. So if you go on there and you see something, it doesn't have to captivate you mentally completely, because you know what you're about, you know why you're there, so you don't grab hold of everything that you hear. And I think that is really, really important. Now, I want to ask you, at what point did you get into wine and perfume making, and why did you choose? I know that you love arts and you love the expression, but well, maybe I shouldn't ask you why. But at what point did you get into perfume and winemaking?
That was actually recent. That was recent. The book stuff I've been doing, that would be 6 years coming up for the book stuff. But the perfume and wine stuff was recent. That was last year, when I call it the bug, when I got bit by the perfume and wine bug. And I actually got into it through music. Through music. I love music, and I started to pay attention to what some of my favorite artists that I grew up listening to were talking about, and not just the beat, but also really paying attention to the gems that they shared in their music. And one of the things that I found was how they put a strong emphasis on ownership and owning things. And I wanted to see where that would take me. But the music was the initial, I guess, the anvil on my head that made me want to look at perfume and wine. I had always looked at it from a consumer, because I have fragrances myself. But as far as wanting to make my own, it came from music and listening to like specific artists like Master P or Jay-Z, even, and artists that started off in music, and then they took that and they expanded, and then they got into fashion, they got into perfume and wine and whatever else. And I started to say, you know what? If they did it, I want to take a crack at it too. It looks fun. I want to take a crack at it. I want to see what I can do with it. And it just fit. It fit well with my books. At the time, I had already written 3 to 4, and so I was like, what else can complement my books? What else can complement that? And then I was like, oh, somebody can smell good while they're reading. Okay, that works. Or somebody can sip a glass of wine while they're reading, or while they have their fragrance on. So it works. But music was the catalyst for, oh, I want to take a crack at that show. I wonder if that would be fun. Yeah, it looks fun. I want to see. Like, so music.
Was it a difficult task to take on?
Um, it was because initially, especially with the perfume stuff, um, I was so excited to do it that I was attempting to do it to everybody. And what I mean by that is, um, because in perfume there's different categories for scents, right? So there's the oriental, there's wooden, there's fruity, there's floral even. And I was so excited to do it that I was trying to do all the categories. And then ended up not selling to anybody because I was trying to do it to all the categories. So to me, that was the most difficult part of the perfume stuff. And then once I said, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to just fruity and floral. Like, I'm not going to be overly excited about everything. I'm going to find my niche and stay with my niche. And for me, my niche was fruity scents and floral scents. And then once I stuck with that, it was a lot easier. But the most difficult part was choosing what angle I wanted to take, because there were so many angles and I wanted to do everything because I was excited. So, so reeling in the excitement and realizing, like, okay, you got to choose something. You can't do everything. That was the most difficult part.
Okay, I get that, and that's the main, that is the main message you hear out here these days. Niche, niche, niche. You have to niche down, choose something, and work with that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the process now of coming up with these different scents and fragrances? Is it a challenge for you? Is it something that comes easy? Is it something that you have to do a lot of research to figure out? What is that like?
For me now, it's easy because one of the things that I do actually, I ask, like, I'll put a question on my Instagram, or at least I used to before it was hacked, unfortunately. One of the questions I would ask is if somebody was in your city, what would your city smell like? What type of energy would they get if they smelled the fragrance that reminded you of your city? And
Mm-hmm.
that has helped to not only keep it fun, but also get people included in it. Because I find that people do want to feel like they're included in something. So that has made it easier, kind of making a poll out of it and seeing what people say. Some of it is from intuition. Some of it is from intuition, coming up with scents. Like, I made a scent actually for my grandpa. Actually, he's no longer with us, but if he was here, if he was around, what would he smell like? And I came up with this combination of um, leather, pine needles, and sandalwood. And it was very, he was a traditional man. So but again, that's what came because I was thinking about what my grandpa. So some of it's from intuition, and then some of it's from asking a question. Like, if I was in your city, what would it smell like? So doing stuff like that keeps it easy and keeps it
Mm-hmm.
fun. It keeps it on the fun side.
I like the sound. I like the sound of that, and my condolences on your grandpa. I like the sound of that. That sound like that mix of sense sound like it would come out really nice.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I stumbled into this space. I call it tripping onto a scent. What I call it. And it's fun. Like, once you get other people involved, like, and see what they would come up with, and kind of see,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that light bulb kind of goes off in their head a little bit when they start thinking about, like,
Okay,
I can help
cool.
you make your own scent if you want. They're like, oh, really? Okay, fine. So it's fun. It is. It's fun.
Okay. Uh, oh, being your own superhero.
Hmm.
How does one do that?
Um, I think that when it comes to being your own hero, I think you have to recognize what comes naturally to you. That's usually a good starting point. Like for myself, I've always been very much a um, self-starter with some stuff. And I think that when you apply the ability to self-start to something that you already love doing, it amplifies. Um, it amplifies. And so I feel like finding things that you like to do, whether you're getting paid for them or not, is a part of it. And asking yourself, like, what is it that I would pursue even if nobody was watching? What would I pursue? If nobody was telling me what to do, if nobody was telling me what direction to go in with it, and they just said, you know what, the world is your oyster canvas. I want to see what you come up with. Like,
Yeah.
like to me, those are like the starting points of being your own like superhero. And then you meet other people that are also doing the same stuff, and then you guys build a team, and then you guys fight everybody. No, not fighting, but metaphorically speaking, metaphorically, you eventually meet other people that are like you. Like once you make the first step.
Yeah. To backtrack a little bit, what has the reception been like for your products that you make, your wine and your perfume? The market, how has the market been responding to your products?
Between books and perfume, I'd say it's been relatively positive actually. The wine stuff is in the works. It's in the works. But books and fragrances is what I push at the moment, and it's been awesome actually. And the books, I talk about my perfumes and stuff in my books, so it's kind of like a segue from my books to my perfume. Um, and I've actually with one of my books, Heavy as the Head, for those who wear crowns, I've actually coupled a fragrance to go with the book. So with Heavy as the Head, it's about viewing yourself as a king or queen, however you choose to view yourself. And so what I did was, as I went, I came up with a matching scent called Moguls for Him and Her. And basically it went along with the theme of looking at yourself as a king or queen or mogul for him and her. And so sometimes that'll happen. Like sometimes I'll be writing a book and then I'll get an idea for like a perfume name, or I'll get an idea for even wine names even, which is still in the works, like I said. But I think it's great when you can I guess cross promo is what they call it. And like when your stuff just meshes well. So that's what I'd say. That's pretty much what I'd say. It's been positive though overall. And that's what's kept me in the game of doing it is people. I could do it, but it's more fun when people are involved. Like it's a lot more fun. So people have definitely kept me on this path.
Okay. I know that you are a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
And you generally ask people about being their own superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And from the many people that you have interviewed, what are some of the ways that people has told you that they've had to become their own superheroes, or why they had to become their own superheroes?
Yeah, so one of the approaches that I take to my podcast is helping people stay in touch with their inner child. And that's why I went with who's your favorite like superhero, right? Because it does tend to get you to think about it a little bit. And what I found is from the people that have been on my show is that based on who they choose, and it could be anybody, everybody has something in common with the person they choose, right? So somebody recently said that their favorite person is Wolverine, right? And so because they've been through a lot and they've been domestically abused, they've been through domestic violence, but still, they're still kind about it. They still have a loving heart about it. despite being in situations that I'm not sure I would get through, like as far as being in domestic violence situations. So it's that like simple question that I guess opens up the door for people relating to their different heroes or whatever they tell me in different ways. And somebody else was saying about Captain Marvel, from the female version of Captain Marvel from the Marvel universe. And they said that they related to that person because of her ability to empower other people, which is a far cry from Wolverine. So it really depends on what the person tells me. And that's why I ask, because I find that everybody can relate to their hero a little bit different. And
Yeah.
that actually, to kind of wrap up my thought, I do feel like we are all, we can all complement each other very well. Everybody has a different thing that we do. We just have to come together and do it. So that's also like the superhero angle why I love it so much.
Yeah. Okay. And you are called Superman yourself. Why is that?
Why? Oh. I'm called Superman because if I tell you that I'm going to be there, then that's where I am. Like I don't give empty promises. If I tell you that I'm going to show up in any type of way, then that's where I am. And outside of all of the creative stuff that I have going on with books, wine, perfume, podcasting, one of the questions or statements that I used to get is, dude, are you human? Why are you a machine? Like, what's wrong with you? but it's not that. It's not that. I'm just passionate about my stuff. And when I tell people that I have all of that stuff going on, that's when I was dubbed Superman. That played a part. And then I also, like I was telling you in private, I wrote it down. That I wanted to be my own superhero. And I related a lot to Superman because Superman is very mild-mannered at work. He does things as he's told at work. But when he's not at work, he's saving the planet. He's flying around the world at the speed of sound. He's doing all of these crazy things that people at work don't suspect him to do. They don't think he can do that stuff. And so when I started to look at my own life like that, it made sense. Because outside of work, that's what I was. I was doing books, I was doing perfume, I was doing wine, I was doing podcasting outside of work. But at work, I did as I was told and nobody suspected anything. But in plays like this on Instagram or on the internet, I was promoting my stuff. I was doing books and all of that stuff. So that's how I was able to like relate to Superman. So that's how I got the name Superman.
Okay, I like that. What impact do you want to make on the world?
One of the impacts that I want to make on the world is that because I'm also in the autistic space, so I also have Asperger's as well, and I didn't want to be limited by the stigma of being quote unquote disabled. I didn't want to be limited by that, and so if I was going to leave any mark on the world, it would be that. It would be to that regardless of what you've been labeled as or labeled with, you can still continue to do great things despite the label or despite what people might feel is a label. And so that I feel like that's one of the marks that I want to leave on the world, is that regardless of what people say, regardless of what people do, you can still do great things if you want to.
If you were to be able to return to attend your own funeral after you die, what would you like to hear people say about you?
Well, I've never been asked that before. Um, if I could return to my own funeral and just listen to what people said, I would say that I would want people to say that even through words or even through paper, they felt my passion. They felt what the message that I wanted to put out. That that I am as ambitious as they come, that I don't take no for an answer, that I'm very cemented in my decisions or my path that I feel works, that I feel is working for me. And then my last thing that I would want them to say is that that I am intuitive, and my gut usually knows what's right. So that's what I would want people to say if I had like a list, if I had a list of things that I wanted them to say.
Okay. Would you say, going back a little bit to you mentioning that you have Asperger's, do you think that impacted how you related to people before? And there are a ton of people out here with different kinds of disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
My guest a few weeks ago, we talked about autism. She has a 12-year-old son who is autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about some of his abilities and how much of a genius he is. But not every child who has some kind of challenge mentally or physically is taught that they can be more than that thing,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't see other people around them being more than that thing. So they feel limited, or they've been told that they're limited by this situation. I'm going to ask you in a very bold way, what gave you the audacity to believe that you can be more than Asperger's would allow you to be if you stayed within that box? What made you think you could do that?
It was actually something my mom said that I took to heart. If you know how to read, you can do anything. And I was an avid reader. I was always looking for newspapers and books to just eat up like a sponge. And so that was the initial nugget. And then I also took, I think they call it an assessment test to see where you are. And I ended up exceeding the score that was supposed to, because you were supposed to score within a certain range, and I ended up exceeding the score, which I didn't intend to do. I call it accidentally doing it, but it was initially my mom that told me, as long as you know how to read, you can do anything. And I don't ever want you to feel like you have to depend on anybody. And so just learning that from like an early age is what I guess you could say, not to sound cliche, but has made me the person I am, because she said and planted the seed early that she wanted me to be as self-reliant as I could be, as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I give her credit.
And how do you maintain your desired state of being? Because to do all that you are doing, it's easy to get overwhelmed. You shop for people, you're doing your perfume, your cologne, your podcasting. How do you maintain a mindset that keeps you going all the time?
Well, that's because I get inspiration from anywhere. I get inspiration from conversation. I get inspiration from music. Sometimes I'll see something out and about while I'm just walking that sparks a new idea, that sparks a book, that sparks a perfume name. So maintaining contact with my inner child, not burying it, but maintaining contact with my inner child is how I'm able to, and I don't get high or anything. I don't drink. It's not fake courage. Whatever I feel like paying attention to or that I'm drawn to has kept me on this path of just coming up with stuff, just coming up with podcast ideas and books and things like that. So being open to inspiration is how I've maintained all of this energy, which I don't know how I maintain. But
so a question from that response that I want to ask you is, explain that concept of maintaining a connection with your inner child, because we are literally forced to stop being kids, right?
Right.
you are told you play too much. That is childish. You can't do that because you need to grow up, da da da. And because of all of these things, a lot of us disconnect from that joyful place, that happy place, that place where everything is interesting and everything makes you're enthusiastic about life and all of that. So many of us are disconnected from that, right? We don't giggle anymore, we don't appreciate the sunshine, we don't play in the water and all of that. So, and all of that is what really makes a child happy.
Right.
So how do you maintain that connection with that inner child?
Well, you know what? That's actually where the Superman stuff comes from, also, right? Because even as a kid, um, I was a comic book nerd. I was. You could find my face in any comic book, and I realized there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with video games. There's nothing wrong with comic books. There's nothing wrong with dolls if you're into that type of thing. There's nothing wrong with it. And and now, as long as you're healthy with it, as long as you're not, as long as you don't become a crazy person. But again, there's nothing wrong with it. And like and convincing yourself that there's nothing wrong with it, if that's your, because even video games, right? Like after a certain age, they say, okay, cut the games off, put the video games away, right? Even they say that, but you'll find that there's 40-year-olds that, you know what they do? Play video games.
Play video games.
And they're pathetic about it. So there's nothing wrong with it as long as you do it within
Right.
and just maintaining that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's how I've kept in touch with my inner child. For me, it's been comic books. That's how I've kind of stayed in touch with my inner child. And recognizing that there's 50-year-old men and women that do that too. And I'm not 50 yet. I'm just talking out loud. But it's okay though. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. All right. So now tell the persons who are going to see this where they can find your books, the titles of your books. I looked at them, some very intriguing titles, I must say. Tell them where they can find your books, and where they can check out your scents and so on.
Okay, so my books are on Amazon, and then 2 of them are also in Walmart as well. And the names of my books are An Eagle Eye with a Lion's Heart: How Introverts Can Break Through Barriers. My second was Lions and Wolves: The Differences Between Entrepreneurs and Network Marketers. My third, which is just an ebook, is called Entrepreneurial Spartans: A Grandson's Tribute. Number 4 was Heavy is the Head for Those Who Wear Crowns: The Entrepreneurial Kingdom. And number 5 is Hybrid: Being Superhuman Among People. And then I have another one coming out on my birthday. And then as far as where they can find me, I do have a perfume page. It is at the Perfume Mogul on Instagram. And if anybody wants to check out what other people have said about my stuff, about my perfume stuff, they can. Because that's where all my perfume videos and testimonies, that's where they are. So at the Perfume Mogul, which is my backup page on Instagram. I think I got everything, or did I leave anything out?
And where else outside of Instagram, where else can people connect with you?
I'm also on Twitter. My Twitter is at Kyle's Enterprises, which is KYLES ENTERPRIS. And then I'm also on Clubhouse. And my name on Clubhouse is Beloved. It's David in Hebrew, and it means beloved. So to make it easier for people, because there's 1,000 Davids on Clubhouse, I went with Beloved. So if you look up Beloved, you should be able to find me. And then the last place that I can be found is on Snapchat at Captain Optimism 27 on Snapchat.
Okay. All right. So, any final words for those who are listening?
Um, well, first I want to say thank you so much again for having me up here.
It's a pleasure.
Despite technical difficulties, I'm glad we made it work. But a word of encouragement for anybody that's going to be watching. Um, if you're confused about the direction that you want to go in, your heart already knows the answer. Um, and sometimes you don't always need a bunch of people telling you to go in 1,000 different directions, because internally you already know the answer. Um, and sometimes having too many people in the pot or in the kitchen messes up the recipe of what you're cooking. So, so sometimes follow your heart. Don't be afraid to.
I like that. All right, everyone. You've heard David Williams here today, being your own superhero and not allowing anything at all, not even autism, to prevent him from becoming the best version of himself. I hope you found some value in this conversation today. And if you are here and you're not following me yet, I'm here every Thursday with somebody sharing something that is for our improvement or upliftment and or development. So if you want to hear more, please follow me so that you can be here with me next week when I am on again. And again, my name is Sharika Swaby. This has been Conversations with Sharika, where spirits goes to find their souls. Have a pleasant rest of Thursday. Goodbye.
Be blessed, everyone.